Okay, so this is just scribing for the 781 heads to be ported. This is the very beginning. Um, Basically, I've got my gasket. This is the standard Felpro. It's going to be... I don't want to move it here, and I can't remember off the top of my head. It's a 8180 PT2. There's a PT1 also. Anyhow, so I've already scribed this, and like a lot of my videos, so I was thinking I'll maybe make a clip here. So you got to use Dicom here and go around the perimeter and swab all around the cylinder chamber surrounding. Line these holes up here all correctly and even, and then as you hold the gasket down, you can take the scribe here and you're just going to scribe a trace around these areas that are open. Just around these shrouds you can see just this little material here, and when we get in here and look, you can see where I've got this I already scribed this, but I put it back down, but we're running here. You see how much material here you have to remove to get up to the gasket there that you can open up for the unshrouding. Same thing here on the intake valve. This whole area here, you can open this up more to unshroud a larger valve if you have a 225, 188, or 230 being the largest, but these are going to be 219, 188. And then I'll just get a little compass here and show how you could keep the concentric circle here for the cutting of the intake. You want to have, a line that's going to be the arc. It'll be the same spot that when you scratch it that you're cutting up to for the exhaust, to keep this exhaust cut, each one the same, so you don't get the chamber volume off. And I'll go over that next. Okay, so I removed the Felpro gasket, and I just made a couple other marks here. These are all my guide references. You can see the Dicom around it, and then you can see here clearly where I've scribed my lines here that I'll be porting up to and cutting to clearance those sections out to unshroud these valves more. And I added the extra Dicom here because I still have to take the compass and scribe just for the exhaust separately to keep them all the same. But here we've got the side of it opened up. I mean, in reality, if you wanted to just unshroud just the side a little bit and you didn't want to really mess with how much you're taking out of here, you could also do that, as long as you keep the cut somewhere that you're going to stop equally on each side. But I want to open these up for the most flow I can have for the exhaust. That's where these heads really suffer. And I'll have that one next. I just take the marker and I kind of just gives me another guide to see. The scribe lines can be a little hard to see, and that just gives me a reference here. This is where I stop here. I'm gonna come up to this point here to clearance through on both of these areas. On the exhaust, obviously I stop here at the end of the hump here where you've got the cut mark for the scribe line. The intake's already cut to there, so you really can't go any further for porting, so it's already to that point. It's just that, you can take that little hump out and then clean up to here just by cutting. And then you can come in here in the end and I'll take the sandstones and polish this porous surface out. I'll do the compass thing next and then kind of move on from there. In order to keep the valve here, the cut for the unshrouding, you need to mark the center of the valve. If you use a compass scribe, I have one that the biggest I've gone is up to here to the center. That's the center of the outer part of the lip and the valve, and that's would be to scribe through the bottom section here equally through this section here. To keep it more, you can see where the gasket scribe is. If you were to take this center to that mark there on the left, and right now where my compass is open is larger, but you would come from here to that point. And then once you had that in your center section there set, as you scribe down this way for the arc, you would have the radius of the area to unshroud equally on each valve through the mark that would be cut into it from down here. That's going to be like, if I take this here, it's too high right now. I need to bring it down just a little bit. If I bring it down, that's almost too much, but here on the outer part, if I just was to take this scribe and just kind of scratch the one little mark there, you can see that there is a mark that will keep all these. If the whole thing was in a complete arc, you would have a cutting guide just like you do here for this area. This is the difference here. These heads now are opened up this much further past that mark, and if I was to take a set of calipers that distance is right around 100 thousandths. So by the way I've marked these heads in particular, I'm taking an additional 100 thousandths out of the bottom radius of this to match the center line here, which is also 100 thousandths more. And when I cut here, it'll be a lot like these other marks that are heart-shaped. Nothing is a perfect circle here, but it's keeping the shape, and it's unshrouding a little more on the bottom, opening up the airflow for the larger valve that's going to go in. Okay, so here is a set of these heads that are, this one here is about at least 85% done. I pretty much ported the bowls, and I've polished a little bit here with the stone, but I've got my unshrouding completed for the intake here and the exhaust, and these are kind of upside down from my other initial pictures in the video, sorry. But so this, it just you could see where I said I kind of went up to a point and stopped, so that's where I stopped here, where I have that line. Same thing with the intake, unshrouding it here. And so inside, this is just all the same, but up in here I've ported this out on the intake. You can see maybe I really don't have a comparison unless I measure it, but this is the hand ported and polished exhaust, and it's opened up quite a bit. These still have to be cut for the valves, and the seats have to be cut for the new bigger valves still. But this was all the rough stuff for that, and when those are done, then all the final polishing and any extra porting that needs to be done can be done. This is just a real mild port job and mild polish stuff. The runners, You might be able to, you can kind of see if this will kind of, must have, see if I can get this to zoom in there. Basically, this is just a mild port, and I haven't done the gasket matching yet, but I basically just cut and smooth the whole chamber here, and then pretty much look to eliminate most of the casting line. Not all of it. I'm not trying to make these too big because it's going to go on a smaller street-driven 454. It's not, doesn't need a lot of extra CFM in the intake runners. And then you can see that it's smooth here, like that is smooth to touch, but it's not fully polished, you know. The exhaust side is a little different. I don't know if I can actually get a shot of the exhaust. Maybe a little bit here. The exhaust side is way more polished. When it's done, it'll be completely polished. This is just all rough still. And that's where you can get away with having that polish to help with the exhaust. That's a little more important than the intake. The intake's smooth, but still a little rough, you can see, and that'll help with atomization and all that. But this is just kind of like where this 781 head kind of for the porting is going so far. Once the valves and everything are cut, we'll take and measure the actual chamber volume. I'm imagining it's going to be like 122 or so. Okay, so here's the final check. I've got all these here. I've got my thick piece of plexiglass. This is just doing the whole thing to try to see how these chambers turn out. They're like 123 thousandths. And that's after opening the chamber's maximum capacity and doing some chamber work. These were originally 119, so I'll have these milled down a little bit, probably get back a couple thousandths here. And I actually started to break this apart and broke that seal there, but then I thought I'd take a little, you know, quick snippet here of just doing the whole check all together at the end here, just to see how we are. And you can always go back here and modify them individually and grind out some more if they were something severely off.